Today, we're going to talk about a plan to reduce our cyber risk while containing our costs at reasonable levels. First, I'll describe our current posture for dealing with alerts for potential attacks and their associated costs. Then, I'll describe our current threat environment, followed by a short discussion of lessons learned from the analysis of recent real-world attacks on well-known companies. Finally, we'll describe the plan for improving our risk posture, and we'll take a look at those costs too. You are all aware of our current security incident and event monitoring solution, or SIEM, that consolidates log file and other information from numerous devices and then, using predefined rules, generates alerts. These alerts may be real issues or false positives. Our security operations team, or SOC, receives the alerts and attempts to determine which ones to work on. We receive more than 6,000 alerts a week. Of these, we are only able to investigate about 22%. We estimate that 80% of all alerts are false positives. The big question is, how do we know if we are investigating the right alerts? Another issue is that this way of doing things is reactive. When an alert for a real security issue is generated, it means the bad guys are already attacking and probably already in the network. The number of alerts increases with the number of devices in the network. With normal growth in our computing resources, not to mention Internet of Things devices that will be introduced to our network, we can assume the growth in the number of alerts will be relatively high and continuous over the next 5 years. This presentation and report assumes only a modest 10% annual increase in the number of alerts received over the next 5 years. Our SOC team is composed of 20 people with 4 people on duty 24/7. With an average burden rate of $100,000 per year, this comes to $2 million for this year. We have added headcount to the SOC team every year for the past 4 years, and we don't see that changing over the next 5 years. If we assume just a 10% growth in alerts per year, and we do not add any headcount to the SOC team, the percentage of unaddressed alerts will go from roughly 78% to 86%, or the percentage of addressed alerts will fall from 22% to 14%. Just to maintain our current rate of addressed alerts, our headcount will have to increase from 20 to roughly 47 in 5 years. Assuming the average burden rate doesn't change, that's a growth from $2 million to $4.7 million, and that's if the growth in alerts is 10%. In addition to being a very reactive approach, another problem is that we don't have a way to prioritize the alerts received. We rely on previous experience, expertise, and gut feelings to choose which alerts we ignore and which to investigate. Most false positives require about 30 minutes of investigation before it becomes clear that it is in fact a false positive. A SOC team member can spend an entire shift looking at nothing but false positives. A real alert doesn't necessarily mean an attack has occurred. It can mean that a system has crashed or has undergone a normal growth in resource usage. It can also mean that a system administrator has for some reason changed the baseline configuration without our knowledge. All of these need to be investigated. While they may represent real issues that need to be dealt with, they don't necessarily represent the presence of an intruder or an attack. The ability to prioritize alerts then, or even better, to prevent or react to an alert before it becomes an alert, would save a lot of time and effort. While we might not increase the total percentage of alerts dealt with, that 22% would represent a much higher number of real issues. This would significantly reduce our risk. What is our threat environment? We all probably have a good feel for the assets we need to protect. I draw your attention to medical devices that communicate over the internet or over our network. These devices, some of which may be implanted in patients and others which may be surgical tools used on patients, are subject to the same attacks that general purpose computers are. Who might attack us? One category is nation states who are highly skilled, well-funded, and persistent. They have a number of motives. One is to steal information about high-profile world leaders, political activists, or opposition candidates who may be our patients. Some countries might even seek to cause an adverse patient event to an individual. Criminals, acting either alone or in groups, represent another type of potential threat actor. Information is worth money to criminals. As a very large institution, we maintain a large amount of information about a large number of people. The more data they can steal, the more money they can make. Our intellectual property may also be of great interest to them. Hacktivists are people who have a political or social axe to grind. They are typically interested in harming their victim's reputation or extorting them in exchange for a change in their victim's behavior. With the rapid changing pace of healthcare requiring us to make hard choices in terms of employment and the number and location of providers, this threat is a growing one for us. Insider attacks may be accidental. An example of this is someone accidentally unplugging a server. But insiders might also act purposefully. They may be motivated by revenge or retribution for any of a number of perceived grievances. Insiders may also be persuaded by third parties to participate in an attack. We believe that the healthcare industry, which generally tends to value knowledge sharing, somewhat lessens the risk from competitors. Nonetheless, our major competitors might be interested, for example, in our internal financial details. The methods used to mount attacks include social engineering, which is particularly prevalent currently. So is the exploitation of hardware or software vulnerabilities. You may think of a denial of service attack as an attempt to block access to our website. However, it could also be an attempt to prevent the use of our operating theaters. Drive-by downloads are also common. This is where an attacker creates a website, and after merely visiting the website, malware is downloaded to the visitor's system. An attack can be targeted or untargeted. An example of an untargeted attack is a spammer sending email containing malware to millions of people, hoping that a few of them will open the attachment and infect their systems for whatever purposes. A targeted attack is one in which the threat actor chooses a specific target for specific reasons and objectives. These attacks are often well-funded and mounted by highly skilled individuals. We recently analyzed a few attacks from the last 2 years that affected major companies. You may be aware of them. The recent WannaCry ransomware event was an untargeted attack that utilized previously undetected flaws in certain versions of Windows. It used those vulnerabilities to encrypt the system's hard drive. The attack on LinkedIn's customer passwords resulted in damaging LinkedIn's reputation. The attack actually occurred in 2012. At that time, LinkedIn thought only a relatively few passwords were stolen. 4 years later, however, they realized the passwords of nearly all of their customers as of 2012 had been stolen. 2016 was a bad year for Yahoo, too. One of the attacks resulted in the compromise of the account information for nearly 16 million accounts. It turns out 2 Russian FSB agents were involved. They had hired a couple of criminals to do the actual attack. So what did we learn from this analysis? First, we learned that we already do a lot of the right things. We are a mature information security organization. However, there are things we can do to improve our security posture. Becoming more proactive in our information security is a chief way to improve our security posture. Any attack we can respond to before it is actually mounted saves literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Being more proactive will help to prioritize which alerts and incidents we immediately investigate. Being proactive requires a cyber threat intelligence capability. The best way to do this is to acquire expertise and rely on third-party intelligence feed services. Cyber threat intelligence, or CTI, is analogous to government and military intelligence. It uses the same process, namely gathering data from various sources, in this case only data that's legally gathered, both internal, for example, from our SIEM tools, and also from external sources that may include a wide range of data and real intelligence information generated by third-party service providers. All of this information is critically analyzed with the objective of producing actual information. For example, secret NSA tools were leaked by WikiLeaks, and some of them utilized previously unknown vulnerabilities in Windows 7. These were used just a few weeks later in the WannaCry attacks. If we had learned about the vulnerabilities at the same time the attackers did, we could have proactively turned off unused ports in our Windows 7 devices, and we would have been protected from WannaCry. The actionable information needs to be appropriately disseminated and communicated. And actionable information may be tactical, operational, or strategic in nature. By implementing a CTI capability, we can provide the ability to proactively respond to threats and impending attacks. And we can also use it to prioritize our SIEM alerts faster and more accurately. So how do we do this? Our plan includes the following components. First, we will transition 6 existing members of the SOC team who are also members of the incident response team to create a new cyber threat analysis team. Incident response team members tend to be our highest technically skilled people and therefore a good match for the CTA team. CTA team members will maintain their incident response team responsibilities. The CTA team will be trained in formal intelligence analysis techniques. These team members will continue to work on the SOC team part-time and will phase out of those responsibilities over a year. We will backfill the SOC team with 2 new hires or transfers. By doing this and having the CTA team continue to work part-time on the SOC, we hope to keep up with our current rate of handled alerts. The CTA team will help limit the growth of our SOC team. We are considering a third-party CTI service from FireEye. This service provides the right level of tactical, operational, and strategic intelligence that our CTA team will be able to use, further analyze if necessary, and build into their own intelligence reports. We don't anticipate contracting this service until 3 months after our CTA team has completed its analytical training. Another initiative is to form an industry group to focus on CTI. We will be able to leverage the investment in this industry group by us and all of our partners to limit the growth of our new CTA team. This is a long-term effort, and we don't expect it to provide useful intelligence for at least 18 months, if not longer. So how much do we expect all of this to cost? This chart shows the costs of each of the components of the plan. If we do nothing but attempt to keep up with the current handled alert percentage, we anticipate our total cost over 5 years to be about $21.3 million. That's assuming a steady burden rate. Our current risk posture will remain unchanged. The cost of the CTI plan will be approximately $27.6 million over the same time period. Obviously, it's a higher cost. However, our risk posture will be significantly improved. The alerts to which we are able to respond will be prioritized and thus represent better coverage of real issues. In addition, CTI will allow us to proactively react to potential threats which previously would have eventually generated alerts, which would have had to be investigated and then responded to. As stated earlier, proactively responding to threats can save us potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars per incident, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for a major incident. Thank you. I'll now take your questions.